I would say the mistake that people make with game is they play the story, and the story doesn't matter. They finish the story. They try to get to a happy ending. They try to get to redemption. They try to have people learn lessons, and none of that matters. You can do it, but it's irrelevant. It's like the game is find the comedy and make it follow the weirdness.
Will Hines is a comedic actor, improviser and teacher with over 25 years of experience. He was trained at the Upright Citizen Brigade Theatre in New York and Los Angeles, where he has performed and taught alongside some of the funniest people in America. He has appeared on Brooklyn 99, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Broad City, Inside Amy Schumer, Conan O'Brien and many others. Will runs the online improv school World's Greatest Improv School, performs regularly at UCB and is the author of the popular book How to be the Greatest Improviser on Earth, as well as Pirate Robot Ninja together with Billy Merritt. I got the chance to meet Will Hines at Presence Midsummer Comedy Fest this June. I took several of his workshops and got the honor to see him perform with Mixer Team as well as with his team, the Bozos. In this episode, Will Hines breaks down the history of Game of the Scene and Tag Outs. We talk about the biggest misconception around game, why it's about playing the game, not the story, and how to get better at it. We also discuss the value of highlighting what others do well instead of pointing out other weaknesses, the improviser's willingness to lose in a scene, and finally, Will get the chance to ask a question to himself. This is episode 115 with Will Hines about Game of the Scene.
You want me to tell you the history of Game of the Scene?
I want you to tell the history of Game of the Scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So, or my understanding, but I think this is pretty correct. Mostly correct. So the history of Game of the Scene is that in the mid-90s, there was a group at I.O. Chicago called The Family. And they were a big popular group. And they were very fast and funny. Just their natural way of playing was very like aggressive and fast. They would come into scenes a lot. They would edit scenes quickly, make moves fast. You know, there wasn't like they were trained to be that way. That was their natural way of playing. And their coach was Del Close, the famous improv director of Chicago. He was like their coach. And he would work with them, and he started using the word game. He'd be like, oh, it's funny. You guys get these little games and play them. And it just kind of meant like in their scenes, they would just get a little subject to fixate on or unpack. And then they'd move on to another one. And he was like, oh, you play these little games. That's pretty fun. And they noticed that he used that word. So the members of the family started using that word like, oh, we had a good little game there. We had a good little game in that scene. And then, the family, had a lot of people who would go on to be very influential in American improv. So Ian Roberts and Matt Besser were on that team, and they would found the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. Adam McKay was on that team, and now he's a big film director in America. He did Don't Look Up and Anchorman and Talladega Nights.
Oh.
And he was the head writer of Saturday Night Live for a while, and he recommended Tina Fey. Because he knew her from Chicago. And there's a guy named Miles Stroth who was on the family, and he founded a theater in Los Angeles called The Pack. Ali Faranakian was on that team. He founded The Pit in New York. So a lot of these guys would end up like founding big American improv theaters. Okay, but the first folks to break out, well, really, Adam McKay was the first one because he went to Second City and became a big director and then went to write for SNL. But in improv, the first ones were Ian Roberts and Matt Besser. So in like 1996, Ian and Besser left Chicago, moved to New York because they had a chance of getting a TV show. And they had, by that time, founded a group with Matt Walsh and Amy Poehler. And they moved to New York to try to get a TV show, but they were broke. And so they taught improv classes to make money while they were like pursuing a TV show. And when they taught classes, they came to New York, and everybody in New York who did improv was slow, dramatic, taking it in, being very like theatrical. And Ian and Besser were like, no, we want them to do it like we do it. We want them to be fast and like get to it quickly. So they started using the word game. Like, you got to find a game. You got to get to a game right away. And this is like the first time the term is used in the way that we use it now, game of the scene. Like, you got to find your own little game in each scene. And even though it was Dell who sort of first coined it, this is when it first became like a term that people used a lot. Okay. But they had just started it. So this is like 1996, 1997, 1998 in New York, which means if you're doing improv in Chicago in 1998, you're not using the word game of the scene. If you're doing improv in Los Angeles, you're not using the word game of the scene yet. But the UCB in New York became very popular. Just hundreds and hundreds of people loved it, took their classes, came to see the shows, and everybody who took the class from the UCB at this time was taught, find a game. And the only really, and I took classes at this time. I started taking classes in 1999 and 2000. And when I took a class from Ian, and all they really said was, play to the top of your intelligence and find an unusual thing. Once you find an unusual thing, just like play with it, and that's the game. That was the only term, unusual thing. And they didn't use the word base reality. They just said, play to the top of your intelligence, find an unusual thing. And then after the scene is over, they'd be like, what was the game? What was the game you were playing? And sometimes you'd be like, I don't know. And sometimes you'd be like, oh, I think it was this. So then my generation of people started writing the curriculum down based on what we learned from Ian and Besser. And we started coming up with extra terms like justification, which meant like, what's your personal philosophy? Or framing, which meant like, when improvisers would tell each other in a scene what they thought was unusual. Voice of reason, unusual person, peas in a pod. Some of these terms were floating around, but me and my generation really wrote them down as part of the curriculum. So even like Ian Roberts and Matt Besser in the late, like 2008, 2009, the late aughts, they didn't know the terms justification, or they didn't use those terms. They just said, find a game and play it. But then like their lieutenants had come up with other terms. So then when the UCB wrote their book, which was 2013, they interviewed a lot of the teachers and everybody sort of shared knowledge. And then Besser and Ian wrote the book, and they wrote a lot of these terms in. And they came up with the term base reality at that time. And they came up and they really put the word framing down for the first time. I don't think really that many people were using framing before 2013. I think it was new then. It was floating around the UCB, but that like established it when their book came out. So yeah, and their book established a lot of stuff. Base reality, unusual thing, play to the top of your intelligence, heighten and explore, voice of reason, unusual person, peas in a pod. These were all really established in the book. But if you went back to like 1996 Chicago, a lot of those terms weren't used at all. And if you study improv with somebody outside of UCB, they won't use a lot of those terms. Like if you go to Los Angeles and go to the Groundlings, which is a very popular improv and sketch theater, they don't know any of those terms. Cause they sprung off in the 1970s from Chicago. So they left Chicago before any of this stuff happened. If you go to the IO Chicago right now, some of these terms floated back, but they're much less used. They're less strict about it. But if you go to UCB theater in New York right now or in LA, it's very strict. Find a game, play it. Like that's what they teach it harder there than anywhere. Yeah. And that's the way it's used. That's where it comes from.
And also the story of tag out.
Okay. Yeah. So tag outs is also strange. So, the birth of it is strange. I was wondering where tag outs came from because, they're really bizarre. Like everything else in an improv show looks like a play. Like if you walk onto a scene in an improv show, that looks just like a play where you walk into a scene, right? If you do monologues, if you pretend to have objects, all that stuff is in theater. So it like quote unquote makes sense. But a tag out is so strange. Like tap somebody on the shoulder and then they leave and you're in a new location. There's nothing like that in plays, right? And I just was like, where's that from? And so I texted Besser. I was like, where are tag outs from? And he told me, he's like, oh, I know this. Because he was there when they were born. And in Chicago in the 90s on Herald Night, 2 teams would be playing. They would each do a Herald. And then they would come out at the end and play a game of freeze tag, which is a short form game. And this is because at this time in improv's history, audiences did not want all long form. They wanted a little short form mixed in, or at least that's what the theaters thought. So the teams would each do a long form Herald and then do a short form game of freeze tag to kind of end the night fun. And so freeze tag, you tag, right? Like people are doing a scene and then somebody on the back line goes freeze. The people freeze. You walk out and you tap one of them on the shoulder and you take their place. But now the scene is different. That's the game. That's the game of freeze tag. You say freeze, you tag, and you change the scene. And the family, when they were doing Heralds, they hated freeze tag. They thought it was like stupid. This is according to Besser. I don't know if they all felt this way, but Matt Besser felt this way at least. And they would do the tags as they started doing freeze tag as like a joke. So people would be doing a scene in freeze tag. They would go freeze, they would tag in and then just do a normal scene. They would not use the physicality, which is what you're supposed to do in the short form freeze tag game. Then they started doing tags in their regular Heralds, partly to make fun of freeze tag and partly they kind of liked it because it let them change the scene quickly and they were a very fast team. So they started using tags. And then everybody started using tags. It just spread from there. So tag outs are from mid-90s Chicago. They didn't exist at all before that. And if you study at a theater, where the ancestry is different than mid-90s Chicago, you don't do tag outs. Nobody in Canada does tag outs. Ground Leagues doesn't do tag outs. And probably if you're a Chicago improviser older than the mid-90s, you don't do tag outs. That was like a very of that moment thing. But now because the success of the UCB theater is so big, a lot of people do them.
It strikes me that it's interesting that it has occurred or happened or developed through like a resistance to something else. It's
making fun of something else.
Making fun of, like tag outs, making fun of something that you have to do to break out from the form or whatever. And also the setting or like how to play more dramatic. And then we want to do fast paced.
Yeah.
So just interesting to think of responses to the Fast UCB game of Cecina. What would be the next step? And so.
Now I'll give you I found a competing theory of where tag outs come from. Now we're really in it now. This is like so specific and weird. But, because Craig Kikowski, who is a very popular improv teacher, he was a student in Chicago, at the time that this was happening. When the birth of the tag out was happening, Craig was like going to lots of IO shows and he was already a coach, I think, and he was very soon going to become a really popular coach and teacher. He remembers it differently. He remembers that this improv team called Jazz Freddy were doing tag outs as transitions from one scene to the next. Not quite how we do them. Right now we do them like you tag, the other person stays in the scene, and whoever does the tag enters and announces a new location. Craig remembers that Jazz Freddy would just you would do a tag and everybody would leave the scene. Like I would tag just one person, but everybody would leave. And then whoever initiated the tag would just start another scene. And it was like a
sweep?
Like a sweep kind of, but a faster.
Okay.
A quick, softer moment of transition.
Yeah.
They were doing it kind of artfully to make it look cool or something. And I asked Besser about this and Besser's like, that's true. Jazz Freddy was doing that, but people did not copy that in theirs. But people, he thinks, did copy the family and the way the family did it. So even though 2 different groups were doing tag outs, it was the family's way that kind of spread. And I think he's right.
And especially maybe with the UCB when that form and they took that
Yeah,
the school and how they...
They definitely spread it their way to New York, so...
But would you say that they used to be manual then enhanced? Because what I think, and if we also like direct to the Swedish improvisers, that or maybe what's the biggest misconception of Game of the Scene?
Biggest misconception?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like anything. If you do it too extremely, it's bad. The biggest misconception is that you have to be really fast and really strange. The biggest misconception is that your unusual thing needs to be really big. That's the problem. People will play they'll learn Game of the Scene, and the very next couple of scenes they do will be way too weird. They'll force a big, weird thing because they're worried that it won't be noticed otherwise. And they'll do it early in a scene, so it's very unnatural. It'll be like, "Hi, honey, I'm home from work. Yes, sweetheart, I cooked our son for dinner. I put our son in the oven and cooked him for dinner," or something. Huge, some kind of big, crazy thing that's so hard to commit to. And I think the misconception is that is correct, and that's not correct. You cannot invalidate the reality, the emotional reality. Nothing can happen that isn't possible. Stuff still has to be emotionally possible. And an interesting thing is like the UCB, Ian and Besser and Amy and Walsh, they taught game, right? But they learned from IO Chicago, so they were not taught game. What they learned was like commitment, top of your intelligence.
Yep. Relationship.
Above everything, relationship. So that was like in their bones. So they almost weirdly didn't teach that so much because they took it for granted. I mean, they told us that. They said, play to the top of your intelligence, keep it real. But all of their attention was on game because that was like the new thing for them. So they almost like didn't teach the fundamentals as well as they had been taught. They taught just the new thing. So for a while, I think game got too much attention. But then, things swing around. Like again, my generation saw the results of this and had to adjust.
But it feels like it has also... It is complicated to play games. Like it's math, but it's not like if I take the first definition of be in the scene, play on the top of your intelligence. Yeah. Just be in it and react on whatever pops out, the first unusual, and play with that. That's it.
Yeah, it's easy.
That's it.
But that's it, yes. So the hard part is only with tag outs or second beats. It only gets mathematical if you do second beats in a herald. Those are very mathematical. When I say mathematical, I mean it's very analytical. It's like, oh, what was weird? How do I think of another situation that's weird in the same way? That gets to be very analytical. But just within one scene, playing a game is easy. It's just like focus on the unusual thing.
And repeat that.
Yeah, repeat it, explore it, just explore how it came to be. What's the backstory? What's the human reason that's motivating it? It's not too bad just in a scene. It's again, second beats make it very difficult, and tag outs, which are sort of like little second beats in the scene, that makes it very mathematical. Because a tag out will happen and the coach will be like, oh, you changed it. You changed the game too much.
Yeah.
And people are like, what? And then it gets very like analytical. So if you want easy game, no tag outs, no second beats, it's not so hard. Game is just saying focus on unusual thing, not the story. Don't worry about finishing the story. Right? Just repeat the unusual thing and explore it.
But also with the tag outs, like for the shows I've watched you in now, here in the Mixer show, and the Boses as well, there's a lot of like consequential tag outs as well, or like, so yes, rambling on or like doing a lot of discovering scenes. Discovering scenes and the game.
Yes, that's true. But we're being inspired by the unusual thing, not the story. I would say the mistake that people make with game is they play the story, and the story doesn't matter. They finish the story. They try to get to a happy ending. They try to get to redemption. They try to have people learn lessons, and none of that matters. You can do it, but it's irrelevant. It's like the game is find the comedy and make it follow the weirdness. Nothing has to finish.
And Game of the Scene is so hard to translate to Swedish like there we don't have the word for it because it's something different. We have a common concept of game and play in Sweden, more or less.
What do you call a short form game? If you were doing a short form show, and it's like, what games are we doing tonight?
We are calling it kort form game.
You say the English word?
Yeah, we say short form. That's the Swedish term, and then we say game as well. So I guess that. But so my question is, if you aren't from a game of the scene school of thought, like beginners, for instance,
yeah,
how do they conceptualize? Maybe
I don't know. I think their improv sucks. Like their character work is super good and their sketch is really good, but I think their improv is stupid. So I don't know. I'd say it's bad. I mean, those are incredible people and incredible shows, but the game is just like, if somebody says, hey mom, you forgot my birthday. And the mom says, I know, but, or no, that's too hard. So if it's like, hey mom, it's my birthday tomorrow. And the mom goes, yes, what would you like for your birthday? I'll get you a present. And the kid goes, I want you to yell at me. I want you to punish me. And the mom goes, what? But you didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to punish you. No, I want to get you something nice. And the kid goes, that is nice for me. I like it when you punish me. It tells me that you care or something. Right? This is the game. So you play it by like repeating it, exploring it, find out where it comes from, see what the other consequences are. What else does this kid want? Flash forward to his marriage. Who does he marry? Flash forward to his job and see what bonuses he asks for at work. Stuff like that. But the story is like, we never really see, you don't have to see what the mom gets for her birthday. We don't need to finish that story. We don't need to see his birthday party. We don't need to see how his relationship with his mother ends up necessarily, unless it plays the game. Like, we don't need to, it's not the beginning of a story that's going to end. We don't need to see him change and learn a lesson and transform either. He kind of stays the same. He's kind of always punish me boy.
But I think that in Sweden then, that might be like somewhere where we sometimes turns that we do it narrative, but we still do it game. So it's a potential game moves to like what kind of gifts does all the friends comes with.
Right. So you can play the story as long as you take the game with you. That's all right. That happens a lot at DCB.
Okay.
You do finish the story, but the story is incidental. It's like you're finishing the story just to find more chances to play the game.
Maybe we hold pretty firm and gripped like that we have in Sweden anyway. I'm not sure.
I think most people, game's not that hard. It's only hard when you tell yourself it's hard. Again, second beats can be hard.
But did you get it like that? Was it?
No,
you remember when you got it and how that?
I mean, get it. It's like, I didn't, no, I would say it took me 2 years of performing, maybe between 2 and 3 years before I felt confident about it.
Okay.
But it's like, I always had an opinion over what I thought was unusual in a scene. It just took a while before I was confident that I could make a move so that the audience would agree with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that took a while. Like, I had to do enough scenes to learn sort of like what's possible in an improv stage. Like, if a kid says, hey mom, for my birthday, I want you to punish me. Like, I wouldn't go to a game show where they're giving out punishments as prizes. Even though that is sort of following the same logic, but it'd be like, I don't know how to get from a kid and his mother to somebody on a game show. Doing a game show is kind of hard in an improv scene, in my opinion. Yeah. So I'd be like, well, that's not the right way to play it because it's too hard. But I might go to the kid in the future asking for a raise from his boss. Yeah. Because it's simple to portray. It's still one person to one other person. it feels very similar to asking for a gift so it'll be understood by the audience.
Yeah.
Like, the way that I'll execute that game will be pretty simple and pretty playable. And so right away, I sort of had an opinion over what I thought was funny, but the part that I had to learn was what are types of scenarios that are simple in an improv setting?
Okay.
What are simple based realities that I could just say in a couple of words? Like the bozos, me and my partners, I don't think people notice this, but our setups are usually very simple. It's like somebody in an office, somebody in the kitchen, somebody at a bus stop.
Yeah.
It's almost never lots of people. It's almost never an unfamiliar situation. Like, we don't really start scenes like on Mars. We don't do like complicated science fiction things. We don't do a lot of TV shows. People do a lot of TV shows on stage because they watch television comedy, and then in their improv show, they try to do like, hello, welcome to, American Idol or whatever. Welcome to The Voice, or, welcome to Survivor or something, whatever the popular shows are. But it's like, it's hard to do a TV show in an improv scene. So I don't do TV shows.
And that base reality is also a bit extreme, because that's the case also in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess it's already hard to make it funny too.
Yeah, and then usually becomes funnier when it's like a mundane reality, I guess, often.
Yeah, so I just stay away from it. Like, I'm staying in areas that are pretty easy to play, like playable ideas.
And it sounds like
that's practice.
Yeah,
and also I kind of know my own energy as a person. Like, I sort of know what kind of characters people are going to expect from me. And I tend to play them.
Okay.
Sort of. I mean, I don't have a completely strict list of it, but I just know my own vibe pretty well. So I'm pretty comfortable with it. Whereas when I started, I didn't think that anybody liked me on stage at all. I didn't have confidence. So it was hard for me to be anybody. I was overemphasizing everything when I started because I didn't believe that people would listen to me. So if I was being somebody's father, I would come on and be like, son, I'm your father. Me and your mother created you 10 years ago. And now you're 10 years old. I would like say so much because I was worried that people wouldn't understand. And now I'm confident enough just to be like, I won't even say son. I'd be like, Jeff, I'm proud of you. And I'd be like, they'll get it. They'll get that I'm his dad. I don't need to do anything more than that. So it's way shorter, way more efficient. That's not game per se, but getting good at that makes game possible.
Exactly.
Because I can just go, Jeff, I'm proud of you. And then I can get to the game in the next line. But back when I started, I would spend 2 minutes just establishing that I was the dad. And I would do it so weirdly that was stranger than anything else I was going to say.
Yeah.
So I think like getting good at game is also just getting good at scene work, just being efficient and simple with scene work too. That's practice.
And so how do you practice that? Like, for instance, you can take classes, of course, and you can read books. You need to commit. It feels like you need to commit a lot of time of doing it. Or
yeah.
How did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I did usually a class a week and a practice a week, and I watched like 3 or 4 shows a week.
That's it for 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah,
but it doesn't sound.
But that's a lot.
Is it?
Yeah, a class a week is 3 hours. You go and you show up, and then I would have a practice for 3 hours in addition to that. So that's 2 nights already. Watching 3 or 4 shows, that's 2 or 3 other nights. Watching other people do it, thinking about it. How can I do that better? And then I was on a house team pretty early too, so we would have our performances. I was doing a lot of it.
Did you think of it like when you walked to the subway or whatever, like promises?
All the time. People would say things to me, I'd be like, ooh, that's a good scene idea. Weird people.
And then did you think of how you should initiate that, or like in a setting, or?
Yeah, I would just take the dialogue, because I remember overhearing a couple, 2 girls at lunch, and they were complaining about their boyfriends. And one of them said, oh my God, I have a roommate and he likes me. And so now there's all this weirdness. And the emphasis she put on the word weirdness was really funny. It was so loaded with meaning. And she was so self-important from what I remember. She just thought she was so fascinating. Oh my God, guys keep falling in love with me. My roommate likes me and there's all this weirdness. And I remember that had like a lot of personality in it. And I was like, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use there's all this weirdness. And I think I heard that in 2002 and I still use there's all this weirdness. I love that phrase.
But also you said that you were like pretty comfortable with what kind of characters you're playing now. Did I understand that correct?
Just like, yeah, what my temperament is, what my energy level is.
Do you like challenge yourself to do other things?
Never. No, I'm only kidding. Yes, I'll always say yes in a scene. Last night we had a show at the festival where somebody was like, Sarah was like, hey, when you're selling these coffins, be enthusiastic. But I'm not an enthusiastic person. That's like not my natural energy. I'm not like a big smiley person, but I did it. Yeah. For that scene because I got told to do it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, all right. So yeah, I'll stretch myself, especially if I'm ordered to. If the scene like pushes me that way, I don't resist it.
But have you also, because I have this thought of training your weak legs.
Yeah.
So if I'm bad at, for instance, musical improv.
Yes.
I want to do that because I want to be good at it.
Okay.
But I don't know why really.
It was fun. It feels satisfying to grow a new muscle. But I think teachers focus on the weak stuff too much. You get notes on what you're bad at too much.
Right.
People don't know what you're good at.
No, I do that.
I mean, eventually the seasoned people do what they're good at more than what they're bad at.
Exactly.
So once you see somebody's good at something, you should reward them for it. Tell somebody like, oh, you're good at verbal stuff. Do more talking. Oh, you're a good emotional reactor. You should make sure you keep reacting.
In my head, that was what Del did to the family.
Oh, yeah. He's like, you guys are good at finding these little games. Yeah, keep doing that. Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, not everybody liked Del, but the people who liked Del really swore by his talent as a director. And I never met him, but from what I've heard, he had a good sense over what would work on stage. So yeah, he pushed people in the right direction a lot.
Do you have any, since you have been here in Europe, you have been in Europe before, but do you have any observation regarding how European versus Americans handle Game of Thrones?
All right, I'll answer this question, but I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay.
I get asked this question all the time. How do the different countries do improv?
Okay.
You know, how are the Germans different than the Swedes? How are the Irish different than the English? Or how are the Dublin people different than the Western Irish? And I'm just going to tell you, there's not as much difference as people want there to be. I will tell you an answer because I just know that I have tried before to say there's no difference, and it doesn't stop people from asking. They'll be like, what's the difference in European and Americans? I'll say, not that much. But yeah, but what's the difference? I'll say, really not that much. Well, yeah, but what is it? You think it's this? And then they'll just tell me, I think it's this. And then eventually it's like, I just give up. And so I just give an answer because then we can move on and talk about something else. But I would say, I mean, the main difference is just that there's less of it here. So it's like there's less examples of it. So people do more narrative and less game because they're just used to it.
Mm.
That's what I think. Yeah. Here's what people want me to say. They want me to say that the British are bad at being blunt and that the Germans are too logical and that the French are too artsy fartsy. But I don't think any of that's true. I've seen good and bad improvisers in every country. Some people are just good at it. There's good comedians everywhere.
Mm.
Here's my real test. It's when somebody's willing to lose. If somebody's in an improv scene and they get criticized and they say yes to the criticism, I know they're going to be good at any country. If somebody goes, God, you're always late. And the answer is, no, I'm not. Or no, I had a good reason. No, but there was this explanation. I'm like, oh, that's too bad. They missed a chance.
Mm.
But somebody goes, you're always late. And I go, yeah, I know. And I'm like, woo, now we're off to the races. But I see that in every country. I don't know. How do you think the Europeans are different?
From Americans, I'd say that we are living more in the reality space working, maybe.
Yeah, it could be.
Not as reference vocabulary and not as verbal fast.
Yeah, could be.
I think
Although that's very Chicago. Chicago's very space work. And New York's very talky talk.
Okay.
So that's what I think about. everybody from Chicago, you give them a suggestion, they go downstage and they start doing object work. That's how they all start scenes. I guess I do believe in generalizations, just in America.
You have been in a lot of podcasts and so and so.
Mm-hmm.
Is it any question that you haven't got that you would like to have that I can ask you?
Okay. The question I like to answer is, what is my proudest accomplishment in improv?
Yeah, that's a good question.
My proudest accomplishment, the first thing I think of is if somebody tells me I'm a good actor, because it's not natural for me, but it does happen sometimes. So if somebody tells me I'm a good actor, or they think I'm a good performer, I like that. I get told that I'm smart a lot. I actually don't think I'm that smart, but people say it all the time. People tell me that I'm fast. I think I am pretty fast. But nobody ever says, you're a good actor. So those are my favorite compliments. Sometimes it does happen. And I like it.
What does a good performer means?
Got me. Just authentic, believable, reminiscent of something realistic, maybe. And it's also nice if somebody tells me that I've made them feel more confident, which happens sometimes, that I helped them. You know, somebody who's good says, oh, you were nice to me when I was a student.
In my world, you are one of the top.
Oh, right. I was saying I don't think of myself as that big because I live in LA and there's tons of really accomplished improvisers, comedians, actors, writers everywhere.
Yeah, but I think it says something that you as a person that are in the improv world then are big in Sweden in a way that you take time for me to meet you and record this podcast and also come to Sweden to do nothing about ageism or whatever, but I mean it's still it takes a lot to travel. Of course you say a lot as well, but are you a persona that also want to share improv? Is that a drive?
No, I don't think it is, but what is a drive is it's fun to do. It's fun to watch shows and see different stuff. It's fun to perform for different audiences and see what works. I like the challenge of trying to win over a new audience. I think that's fun. It's fun. Festivals are fun. They're fun to do. And it's fun to see a new city also. I've never been to Stockholm. That was really why I wanted to do it. Because I didn't think I'd have a reason to come here otherwise. But that's nice of you to say. I do. I guess I'm pretty humble. I think just reality keeps me humble.
Yeah.
The limits of reality. I do stand up sometimes too, and I'm really not good at that. And I fail all the time in stand up. And I'm reminded of my limitations a lot. And my improv group doesn't always work. I do bad shows pretty regularly. And I'm reminded, couldn't get him tonight. And how it keeps you humble.
Yeah, to fail, to keep challenge yourself and to reflect upon. Do you still practicing doing premises when you hear things on subway?
Yeah. Yeah. If I hear something good, I'll put it in my pocket. There was a woman, and me and Jim Woods, who's my partner, we were at a Starbucks in Los Angeles, and there was a woman who'd brought a dog in, and you were not allowed to bring dogs into this particular Starbucks. And this dog was just barking like crazy at everybody who walked by. So the manager came over to ask her to leave or to take her dog outside. And he was very nice. And he's like, oh, excuse me, I need you to take. And the woman just said, no worries. She'd be, no worries. He'd be like, could you please take your dog outside? She'd be like, no worries. That's not quite a logical answer. And he just gave up and walked away. And me and Jim were like, that is such a funny strategy to get out of being criticized. Just keep saying no worries. And they eventually give up. And there was something funny about it. So I remember that one. I'd use that in an improv scene. No worries. Hi, ma'am, you have to go. No worries. No worries. What do you mean, no worries? I don't know. I love that. I think the other reason I did this podcast is it's flattering to be asked. I mean, I do think about it a lot. I mean, I'd like to say that it was me just being generous and nice, but I also think it's just my ego. It's just nice to be asked my opinion on something. I don't know how I got to be known doing it, truthfully. I don't know how people know who I am. Improv's such a strange thing. I guess because I wrote a book, and the book gets around.
And the book is, you've written 2 books, at least. And
yes.
Improv notes.
Yes, that's true.
But that's maybe not like a comparison to the other two. Pirate Robot Ninja with right.
Yeah.
You have Crow.
Yes,
And also
still.
and also how to be the greatest improviser.
Right.
And improv notes from your blog.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe
I guess that's why.
Do you have any more?
No, I think that's it.
So your then ability to compound or to like also write good things about improv.
I do. I like doing that.
Are there any final words you want to say, Will? Or
Well, just thank you for asking. And it's been really fun. It's been fun to see all the improv in Stockholm and Sweden. So thanks for doing it. Thanks for liking it.
Yeah, and thanks to Erik and me that brought you here.
Yes.
That's very, very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.